What is happening, everybody? Dom here from Lensprotogo and Lens Rentals. Welcome back to the channel. So I just want to take this video to quickly share a couple of my thoughts about this new and improved 24-70 G Master version 2 from Sony, of course. And I'm willing to bet that if you're a Sony shooter, whether photo or video, or you dabbled in a little bit of both, there's probably a good chance that you've used this original 24-70 G Master. It's probably one of your best options as a native E-mount 24-70. So given that, I know you'd probably be excited to try the version 2 of this lens because Sony gave this thing some much needed spruce ups from the original version. Some things that we can plainly see just by looking at it, and some things that we have to scratch the surface for. Not literally. All right, please don't do that TikTok trends to our lenses, by the way. You will pay for it. Anyways, in this video, we're just going to brush through a lot of those improvements that they put into this version 2 lens, especially coming from the original. And then in the end, we're going to wrap up how we feel about this thing. So starting with the things you can see, the version 2 is a lot smaller than the original version, and I guess you can't see this, but it's a lot lighter too. The version 2 is down to 1.5 pounds from the original's 1.9. Also, the length is basically down a ½ inch across the board, as well as the barrel diameter being cut down too. It still features an 82mm filter thread, but now the lens sort of tapers up to that filter more drastically than the more straight-barreled version 1. And we got some new tricks going on here with this version 2 as well, so let's talk about them. We get a physical aperture ring up closest towards the lens mount that comes with a click-declick ring for a smooth iris pull if you want. Also an iris lock switch, which will lock it in the stopped range or keep it controlled by the camera dials in A mode. And speaking of locks, there is no zoom ring lock anymore because, trick number 2, the zoom ring now has a smooth tight switch, which in tight mode will apply added resistance to the zoom action. This will significantly decrease the chance of making an accidental change to the zoom ring, and in video this can make for a much smoother zoom action than throwing the zoom ring in smooth mode. Both still require a steady hand. I just found that it was less so in this tight setting. Other than that, design-wise, it's very similar to the original. It feels like all the same materials. The rubber grip areas are each just slightly smaller than the version 1. That autofocus switch is moved up in between the zoom and focus rings now instead of just behind the zoom. And lastly, it seems that the weather sealing gasket is reworked a little bit. Okay, moving on to the stuff that matters. Just kidding, all that stuff mattered, but we've got some optical spruce-ups going on inside this lens that I want to talk about. First off, 2 more optical elements in 2 more groups, which is interesting because this lens is significantly smaller than the version 1. Sony is boasting a whole lot of sophisticated elements going on in here, like extra low dispersion elements for greater color rendition and less aberrations, as well as special optical elements to help maintain the optical consistency over the whole zoom range of the lens. So maybe that's where the extra glass is coming from, not really sure. But one thing that is really important to me that I think often goes understated is the minimum close focus distance on this lens is cut way down from the version 1. This version 2 offers a wonderful 8.3 inches at 24mm and basically 1 foot exactly at 70mm, which is greatly reduced from the version 1. Another big improvement, we have an 11 blade diaphragm in the aperture build of this lens that's coming from the already pretty much fine 9 of the original G Master, and this of course is going to help shape up those bokehs and keep them nice and circular and smooth. And there's even special optical elements going on inside here to further help the look of those bokehs, sort of countering that onion ring effect. All right, lastly, this lens is going to include a couple of minor tweaks to the original one that are going to make it much more friendly for use in video, which is just like the direction everything is heading in recently. That means focus breathing and parfocality are improved. You have the ability to throw the iris smoothly, as we said. It will also have a much better response manually focusing. Because it's focused by wire and they have to program that, they programmed it to have a much more linear response. Okay, so those are all of my notes on the pretty sufficient makeover this version 2 lens got from the version 1. I think a lot of necessary improvements went on into this. People that shot on the original 24-70 G Master really wanted to see, and is maybe giving them ideas for other G Master version 2s coming down the line. So now for the rest of this video, let's just check out some stills and footage that I was able to get with this version 2, and also a couple of side-by-side tests between the version 2 and the version 1. This particular copy of this lens behaved really impressively on the chart. Wide open f2.8 at 24mm is quite sharp from corner to corner with very little chromatic aberration going on. By the way, all lens and exposure corrections are turned off in camera, so what you see here is 100% optics. And at 70mm, things get even better. It gets sharper at 70mm with even less chromab, and stopping down to f4 at each of these focal lengths increases sharpness even more so, as expected. Yet, to be honest, these chart tests between the version 1 and the version 2 were nearly identical. So as far as like striking improvements to this model, I think have to look a little bit further. I think where you may notice a difference between these two lenses is the bokeh characteristic and out of focus area. But again, nothing strikingly obvious. In this quick bokeh test I did, you can see that both versions give a sort of textured, almost in-focus look to the bokeh, if that makes any sense. So that could be off-putting, but from old to new, it certainly seems that the version 2 is more sufficiently coded. I can tell that it catches a bit less of the flares and glares than the V1. Like I said earlier, another big thing for me is close focus distance, where this version 2 is going to achieve a much closer minimum close focus distance than the V1 at both focal length extremes 24 and 70. Another category where I was expecting to see a big change, but there really wasn't much of a difference, autofocus. I only did a test in video, but the version 2 did not seem to be that much faster or any better at tracking than the version 1. Maybe marginally, but oddly enough, I think the version 1 was catching my eye even better than the version 2 at times. So speaking of video, I think where you'll notice a major difference between using these two lenses is during use in video. That smooth, tight switch for the zoom ring could give you a much more controlled and consistent zoom action for a zoom that's taking place during recording. And same to be said for the iris changes. There was really no way to do a smooth aperture adjustment during recording on the version 1. You would have to do it by dial, which could be loud and cause like the whole camera to shake. Alright y'all, so now that you've seen how this 24-70 G Master has been improved from the original version, both on the outside build-wise and internally with new optics and autofocus tech and stuff like that, let's chat about some of my final thoughts. If you're strictly shooting photos with the original 24-70 G Master and you were perfectly happy with its sharpness, autofocus speeds, and size and weight, which you should be, it's perfectly average lens, I don't really see any version to upgrade. The optical improvements didn't really blow me away. I could hardly find any difference in autofocus actuation speed between the new and the old. Maybe if I shot on both of these lenses for like a full year and I could really get to like parse out the differences between them, but just in this short amount of time, I wasn't really able to do that. That being said though, if you've used the original 24-70 G Master for video purposes and you felt that it was limiting you in that way that shooting video on photo lenses can sometimes, then this version 2 is literally for you. There were a lot of improvements that went into this thing that were specifically geared for making video shooting easier. And with that, that is pretty much gonna wrap up this video, talking all about this 24-70 G Master version 2 and the upgrades that went into this thing coming from the version 1. So as always, if you have any questions about this lens or the version 1 for that matter, or any of the gear you saw in this video, drop a comment in the comment section below and we'll start a discussion. Also, if you happen to like this video, great. You can hit that thumbs up button down there though to let me know that you liked it, and that'll bump it up in the algorithm, get more people watching this video. That's how it works. Also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and do that, and if you are subscribed, you're awesome. But also, you can go ahead and hit that little bell button that's next to the subscribe button. That will notify you and keep you in the loop whenever we post a new video, which is every week. So stay sharp out there, folks, and we'll see you in the next one.